Board members present,
Marty, I'm here.
Dale,
Kevin here. Mike McLaughlin here.
here. Let Lisa see what we did. Let's do it again. I don't mind doing it again. Right? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Never seen a pledge say pledge allegiance too much. Okay, let's roll call approval of minutes. Start with minutes. So Dale goes here. There are no minutes. We'll skip line item approval minutes. We'll take line item one, special follow action on minutes for June 24. We skip. Jeff, let's get into item number 2, and if Dale shows up, we're going to pause it and move him forward.
Okay.
So let's go to line item 2, presentation discussion on budget variance report, presentation discussion of check revenue street.
Okay. Looking on page 4. Let's see. So we got the budget report on the second page there. As far as the invoice register, that'll show you what we've done recently, and it's basically, it's all within budget, and in fact, it's just like with Apple Valley, in that we haven't spent as much as we forecast. I mean, that we budgeted for so far. Now they're all.
The year's not over.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Yeah. I mean, in other words, these numbers, I don't want to say aren't going to matter to the end of the year, but
It's okay. We're just getting an update, making sure we're not out of balance.
exactly, and we're not. And so,
But we do have a couple of questions that we talked about earlier, the Galloway and Company that we're researching now. And the Ross Grayson, I'm not aware of any outstanding invoices with him. I think we're current with Ross.
we are current.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Kevin, your answer would be that that's paid him a modality there. Unless he's got some invoices he hasn't submitted. He submitted a pretty good list of things back in the spring that we took care of. So I'd be surprised if anything else out there.
I'm gonna just reach out to him real quick, and just see what we got left to do on that. What it would take to fire it up and try it out, so that we're getting in the winter.
Yeah.
We got emergency backup equipment for maybe wells.
You said you were saying that, Marty, I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just thinking that the generator was more money.
Doesn't 4,000 sound right to you for that?
I don't think it was super expensive, but I think it has some smoking bills on it.
And I can't remember if we.
You know what the
if we
difference
bought it with
is,
donated money?
The difference is, I think we allow them quite a bit more than they spend less.
Maybe that's.
If we voted on it, that's quite a little less.
I'm not so sure that it wasn't donated money, Marty, because I know the trailer, because we talked about it, Ross and I did, and we were gonna split stuff up.
Yeah, I don't think there was much cost involved overall.
Yeah, I think somebody donated money for that trailer, or for the generator. We donate the trailer, and somebody else will donate the generator. So I can't see us owning any additional funds.
And it's ran by propane.
Right from the diesel.
No diesel.
Dale. Let's put the budget on pause for a moment, and let's just move up to report from Mr. Harris on the water department. If you have any. Okay. If you have any, if you don't, you don't.
I got a few things. So, had the power bump that we had last Wednesday, the power went off for a substantial amount of time. Got the slow start on AV number 1. Lloyd Gubler is going to be out here tomorrow to take a look at that. I've done everything that I know how to do on it, and I still can't get power to it, even though there's power to it. So it might have cooked that. So I'm running Apple Valley number 2. Had some problems with that because the contactor wasn't making good contact and had to adjust the relay, the over voltage relay on that. So we're good to go. We're almost completely full right now. Cedar Point water, just to be blunt, sucks. I've been getting a lot.
Stinks, that sucker stinks.
Yeah, I've been getting a lot of complaints, for the water over there, and that's just because we're at the end of the season. We haven't had much rain, so we're in the bottom of the barrel, when it comes to the water over there. But I want to remind everybody, since I'm on record right now, is that I'm getting a lot of complaints and people are using the verbiage, of the water being drinkable. And I want to remind everybody that for sampling and doing tests for the state of Utah federally also, taste and odor is not part of your testing. So that is not an indication. Let me back up. That can be an indication of bacteria in your water. But I want to assure everybody, we've never failed our tests since I've taken these systems over with Cedar Point, and the water is potable water. It doesn't smell like it, and it doesn't look like it, but it is bacteriologically safe to drink. I've been flushing over there since we don't have as much water that I'm able to get into that tank. I can't be as aggressive as I have been in the past with my flushing program. So whereas I was flushing a couple hydrants a month, I'm flushing a hydrant like once every other month because I just don't have the water to dump out on the ground to be able to do that. So the 59 well, which we started out at when we first built that well, test pumped at 108 gallons a minute. We were able to put it into the system at 80 gallons a minute. We're down to 27 gallons a minute on that. And the reason that I can only pump that is too low. I'm pumping 2% milk is what it looks like, the little fine air bubbles, too high, and I'm pulling the iron algae. So about 27 gallons a minute is where I need to be at to keep the water within reason of having no taste and odor to it. So I had several complaints over the weekend of smelly, stinky water. And it's just, most of the time it's folks that have just moved in. So they're just not used to that, you know, all of the houses over there have filtration systems in it, especially the old schoolers that have been here for a while. They know that the filters have got to be put in for them to get their water not to, you know, look bad or taste bad. But that's why it's imperative that we need to get another source over in Canaan. It's the aquifer. We've talked about deepening wells. We've talked about all of that. We're going to have to get pretty deep in the ground to get out of that iron algae. I think Frank is 1,000 feet and he doesn't have any of it. And our deepest well is 426 feet. So we have a long ways to go to get to that depth to be able to even take the chance of getting a better quality water. And that, I think everybody in here is a little bit well knowledgeable. I mean, it's a gamble of what you're gonna get, even if you get that deep. We got reduced monitoring now for Cedar Point. We were doing lead and copper samples every 6 months, doing 5 bottles every 6 months. That's been reduced to 3 years. And then as long as everything comes back good with the lead and copper that I'm sending in tomorrow, we'll be able to get reduced monitoring over in Cedar Point also. And that'll end up being every 3 years on that. I'm trying to think if I've got anything pertinent. Go ahead.
What's the level of the Cedar Point tank right now?
I'm about a little bit over 900,000. I'm about 920, somewhere in there. And that was because we stopped the bulk usage for, what was that?
We
almost a
said
month?
2 weeks, but we actually let it go almost a month.
Yeah, we let it almost, and that got me up. And now I'm actually relatively keeping a give or take 30,000 gallons, just depending on, you know, the rain that we had, of course, got me up a little bit. But we've got a guy over there flying with a hose today doing all of that. I'm assuming they're doing over X there as soon as you come into Cedar Point. That's what they were doing. So other than that, I don't know of any bulk water that's being used over in Cedar Point right now.
Fisher was out there soaking down that 6 acre parcel that got something like.
Wasn't something down 6 acre parcel, he
Or
was
was it
just the perimeter around it.
I forgot
One of
about
the-
that up by Cops.
Yeah, I didn't mean he was soaking down the 6 acres. I just meant the roadway on that 6 acres.
Yeah, without creating a logistical nightmare, because I really want you to think about that. We have some dead end lines up there where we're taking bulk water. Would it do us any good to move those bulk water meters over to the areas that you need to get flushed and use that for flushing?
Yes.
So rather than you having to dump water in the street or the ditch, let them dump it in the tank, but use construction water.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of a logistical nightmare for you. This is part about what we talked about earlier, where we're trying to get Dale and the town, because it's been a district working in one direction and town working in another direction. We're trying to get that more, I say that word very well, but it's cohesive.
It's not a logistical nightmare for me. It'd be a logistical for the contractor. Because my thing is that I know that a meter has gone over to Cedar Point. So where it's hooked up within reason, where it's hooked up really doesn't matter to me. It's just me keeping track of the gallons
Yeah.
of what's actually coming out of that system. But the contractors need to know, you know, they go to a dead end hydrant. They're gonna want to flush that before they stick that into their truck, especially if they're putting that, you know, through spray bar at the bottom,
Right.
because it's just gonna plug their spray bar off.
Right. We just, one of the things that we've been lacking in here is control over construction meters, where they're assigned and where they're going to. So we want to start work, get that communication going stronger and have pre-identified areas by which you'd rather see water pulled from to increase your flushing or helping your flushing. So when we assign a water meter, we don't want the contractor to just go anywhere they want to go and just drop
No,
water anywhere they
we
want.
have
That's
control
what they
over that
can do.
for the last almost 9 years, but that's just somehow fallen to the wayside. I always got a phone call. I always got asked if the meter could go out. And it was either yes or no, or yes, this is where I need it to go if you're gonna pull from, but I'm not getting those calls anymore.
Yeah, so we want to, and that's what we want to try to, one of our big areas, we're trying to, when we just, in the past, when we've given water meters, we want that water meter to go through the department so that the superintendent can assign where it goes, as opposed to allowing the contractor to go somewhat full where.
Well, it has to be system specific too.
Right,
So if they're going to Cedar Point,
Right.
because I've got to hand in my numbers at the end of the
Right.
year for my data, they can't take that over to Cedar Point and use that same meter and go over to Canaan and then come back over to Apple Valley because the meter's not read in between its switching systems. And then I'm trying to figure out where all my water's gone because I'm super heavy on one system and I didn't know that it went over to Canaan and where do I allocate my water to?
but we know that's happened. We know at least one and maybe two contractors that are doing that. So
I hope not, because that's good.
they happen. So we just gotta hope, well, that last one, we got that, get that redirected. So anything else?
Other than, well, coming back up a little bit, I haven't been in here for a while.
Back up as far as you want.
So, does everybody know what happened with the Cook well here a couple months ago? The 90 blew out at the bottom and that really choked us out on water for a little bit.
Right, yeah.
Does everybody remember that? Okay.
Yep, and you're working on it, you worked hard on that one.
I've just got
4 days.
Yeah, I've got a 6'3" in a little tiny hole, I'll tell you what.
Some pictures of it.
Yeah.
There's some pictures posted of it.
Yeah, it was, but it's all together. Just so if anybody ends up in that building, there's a couple of leaks and of course, I'm not shutting that thing down until we're out of the season. And then I've actually got to take that apart, all back apart, and I want to do it all in Schedule 8. Because it needs to be, I need to take it back apart. What I did was to get us up and running. So there's an air vac. It's not sealing off all the way, so there's a little bit of drip coming out of that. The check valve has got little drips coming around from the, but the nightmare of putting that thing together, I wasn't about to shut it back down again. It hasn't been shut off since that day.
Yeah, we'll wait.
Yeah, I've left it running. Other than that, I think,
There's a mayor's report that goes out tomorrow that kind of mentions Dale, and it doesn't mention it enough. I made a very brief one sentence comment out there and you'll read it. So I made a comment about Dale that I have in 35 years been in construction business, never come across somebody more dedicated than Dale when it comes to his job. But Dale can't do it alone. And that's the other thing we pointed out there. We talked about water conservation and different things, and Dale just can't be a one-man boat. So part of what we're working on the next 6 months with some of the other developers is to help take us some cost to increase the support for your department. So we're working on that.
the other thing is the tap for the RV park. We've had 2 dates scheduled to do that tap. We were supposed to do it Monday. They weren't quite ready. They got a hold of me Monday and come to find out they hadn't talked to Matt Rhodes yet. So they've got to get a permit. They've got to get a permit now, is what we're waiting on to tap in now.
Okay, So let me clarify what the permit, the permit was actually, they were making an application to be able to drive through Chevron parking lot to access Highway 59, which I believe you denied them when you. approved
I'm
it
just
the first
talking
time.
for the water, just. for
I
them to
understand
go
that
in.
they're holding, UDOT is holding up their encroachment permit until they do their access permit for Highway 59.
Gotcha.
That's what they were holding up. It was my understanding that
They were okay with them using that Chevron station. It's kind of funny that when Travis Holm talked to them about it, they weren't okay with it. They wanted to move it back to where the fence line was.
yeah,
And then when they came out the next time, they said, no, we'll be okay with that. And the problem with moving it was you have a leach line with a station
that you're driving over.
that you could drive it over based on them moving it. And so they decided, UDOT at the time, talking to these guys, said that back entrance will be okay, but that they wanted acceleration lane
Right.
or by the mailboxes. Because the main entrance is really off of down the way.
So we met with UDOT, Lisa, and I talked to Matt Rhodes late this afternoon, I talked to Dan and Mike earlier in the day. We're encouraging them, I don't know that we can do it, but we're encouraging them to vacate use of the parking lot entirely and tie them strictly to the roadway. That's what UDOT would prefer. I think that's a better system, so we're working through that right now, so it may negate, my point is it'll negate their need to finish their access permit to get through the tie-in, and then UDOT will do the tie-in.
So
you should,
UDOT's not gonna let him go out and do that tie-in until that entrance is taken care of, is that? what-
not take care of that their permit was, they wanted an access directly through the Chevron parking lot, but which UDOT was requiring them to do an access permit for. But in our meetings today, we came to the conclusion it'd probably be better if they only use the roadway and not use Chevron. So therefore, we negate the need for an access permit to be completed. If that is the case, then on Monday, when we meet on site with UDOT, they'll give a notification, go ahead and do that. Tie-in. That was my point.
Okay, so the driveway would be using the current driveway that access the highway or a completely new driveway?
Coming out of under the roadway onto the mailbox
Their property.
from their property, not go through Chevron parking lots.
So one of the pitfalls there is that you're moving that access point further down that highway that direction. And that would mean they would have to extend the deceleration lane.
That's correct. That's correct. And that's what we're meeting on Monday to look at. So if push comes to shove, is it better for them to add a second lane, increase the decel lane so we can use that only? And that's part of what we're looking at on Monday. So it's undetermined, but if it turns, that's the route that the three groups would prefer to go.
Okay.
So if it does, then it'll negate the need for that access permit to be filled out, and that'll be decided on Monday. Then they can go with that. But we need our water line.
I have a couple questions. I know that on the tanks up there, that every time we get a bolt of lightning, it fries the auto starts for our AVs over here. Is there anything that we can put in line that will help?
Well, this is the first time we've had anything.
Oh, they
like that.
a long time.
What you're thinking of is the pressure switch that's in the bottom of the tank. So the only reason that it'll do that is if the tank is low, so that lightning hits and there's no water there to basically catch that.
To absorb it.
So now, when that's on auto, I only let the tank only drops like 5%. So the tank, these tanks are essentially just full all the time. So I haven't popped that switch for probably 2 years now. What I had is that maybe you're thinking of like a year ago, I had kids break into there and for some reason they went over and broke my whole needle valve off. They clipped the wires into my.
I love it.
I heard that was a little Sarah kid back there in the back. Not spread.
Probably the old man took them up there.
Yeah, Kevin's the one that hoisted them up.
You don't let break that thing, will you?
And so I won't tell anybody where it is, but there's a game camera that's up there now. If somebody gets in there, they will have.
Is there anything that we need for these two wheels out here?
When Lloyd comes tomorrow, we're just gonna find out if that's, I don't think that it's cooked because we didn't get a bump. When the power went off, it just went off. So I just think that there's something's in there that's above my capabilities. I took the whole thing apart. I hit every reset. I went through and checked power for everything. There's power inside the box. Lloyd says that Lloyd's a good man, but that's just where his brain goes to, is how you probably cook it. I don't think that it's cooked. I just think that once he gets in there, he'll be able to take care of it. It's the one that Trevor donated to us. We didn't pay any money back. But we should do the same thing as what we've got over, for the wells over in Cedar Point. And that's the automatic drawdowns, the actual up-to-date soft starts that will
Right, the
actually.
soft starts, that's what I was.
Yeah,
concerned
and
about.
it'll absorb those things. So it actually has a program inside of it. If it's lightning or if it's, if the power even bumps, the thing just stays down for 10 minutes.
It does a time guard on it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mike's into that. Yeah, so yeah, it won't even come back up. But what it does is gives me my real time for my drawdown. So like with well 59, if I didn't have that real time of where my level, my static level was, my pumping level was in that, it'd be a nightmare for me trying to figure out that water in 59. So it's extremely valuable information for me as an operator.
What are those running?
I think our whole setup for building over there was around 4,500, $5,000, somewhere in there.
Did we have money for that improvement?
Sure, we can always find money somewhere. Well, we need to have a backup, so, I mean, we put in the budget, we need to have something to be prepared for that, just backup parts.
As a backup.
Well,
Even if we put new parts in and save the old parts for backup or something.
exactly. And I say that anything that's usable, anything that I take out of any of that stuff, I keep. That's all up there in the storage shed. Anything that's usable, of anything we take apart. I'm a scab together guy when I have to have stuff, so it's good together just to go up and grab stuff out of there and know that I've at least got something, a Band-Aid to get me through until I can get down to Schultz's or whatever, yeah.
Because we should have some of our own emergency backup stuff.
Yeah,
Well, we need that.
When we can't get it through Schultz.
Yeah,
Shells are getting barren all over the place.
I have a good base amount for stuff, and that's the thing with, just like we did, we bypassed the auto stuff. With well number 2, yeah, that would have been a bummer if that didn't fire up, but I could easily disconnect that soft start and be able just to put number 1 back into business. That would take me like an hour just to go through and do that, or I've got number 2. So just fire number 2 and let Lloyd see if he can work some magic on that old soft start. That thing came out of a batch plant is what it came out of, but it was free, so, yeah, we'll take free.
Well, maybe we should get into it.
I agree with that. You want to twist my arm on that one, you're wrong.
And do we need one for the other well?
Yes. Those are supposed to work in tandem. So all of the telemetry is actually there for number 2. But number 2 needs to bounce off of the antenna that's on number 1 to be able to hit the antenna that's out the tank. So we got almost through that project and stuff changed. And so that just kind of got set on.
So that got put on the back.
Yeah, but it's all ready to go. There's even the space in the box that just needs to be plugged in, and it's literally just plugging everything in and we'd be good to go.
So what does this council need to do to accommodate those needs?
I'll just give you guys an updated price. And other than that, I can actually install all that myself too, because everything is already in there for me to just plug it in. So I'd be totally comfortable with doing it myself. I mean, need Lloyd to set some parameters on that new piece of equipment, but as far as wiring it in and doing all that, I can do all of that.
So we just need to like some money.
Yeah.
People take on the fire department.
I'll put a donation jar just up there with all that.
I didn't really say, I was kidding.
That's a dog stuff with you.
Oh, yeah. Well, I like fire. Anything else, Dale?
No, that's all I got.
Awesome.
Thanks, Dale, appreciate it.
If you guys are good with me, I just fired at the drill, so if I can be excused.
We'll be over in about 20 minutes.
Okay.
We'll close this meeting real
I'll
quick.
cut 1.5 for you. Have a beautiful evening, guys.
Thanks, Dale. Okay, back to check registry.
As far as connection fees, and you'll see that, right now we've spent 232% of what we budgeted for that. That's on page 2, the second page. I mean, everywhere else, we're looking good. Not including some expenses that we've had in the last couple of weeks, but, and that and the, did I already say equipment maintenance? So I'm not sure why we had that allocated to, just the, 1,000 on that. But, we can change it.
Well, I'm not sure there's need for a change yet, is there?
Well, I mean,
I don't think so.
okay. Same with connection fees. 5310. Looking at 5310 and 6060.
Good. Any other questions on that?
Well, yeah, I like this whole thing to just be summarized because there's been a lot of conflict and a lot of he said, she said over the SSD and their current status and where they were before. So where are we at today in the SSD, whatever you want to call it, Big Plains? Are we very viable now? Do we still need to look at some other issues?
We're not fully viable, but we're better, we're covering our own, but viable to me is to be ahead of the game. We're not there yet. With the current amount of building permits that are being pulled into town, by early spring will be what I would deem viable.
What does that mean? What limit, what amount?
Reserves,
What amount of money is that?
it's not amount of money, it's percentage of in reserves that we should
What does
have.
that look like?
20% in reserves.
And that's $30 or?
No,
40
it's,
$40,000?
so the annual, I think our annual payment after this year drops down to, so we got 85,000 next November that goes away after this year, right? Is there a last year on it? Or one more?
I don't remember the amount on that one, but it is.
It's 85,000, so the money we've been applying to that, we go into reserve, so if you want a target number, we don't have one yet. But we're forecasting, I said this earlier, I'm hesitant to give a forecast because we don't have consecutive years of building and
We
growth
know
in the
that, and it
town.
could all change in
So,
2022.
well, it could, but if you said today, if we had 2 years of this, then it would be much easier to project accurately. But we went from, what, 6 permits to 40 permits in 1 year?
Right.
And if we continue now to with the water that's allocated for development now, that can go to 100 units in 1 year. So that's a double the number. So it's a little bit, I'm a little bit hesitant to say a dollar figure.
Well, no, and I get that. I know when they started this clear back in Mosier's day, with Rod and everybody, the whole kit and caboodle, was they were basing everything off the current, citizens and just a small projected growth because, the growth out here has just been very tiny for years and years and
It
years.
was 5 or 6 homes a year.
Yeah, and they based that and the rates and everything just on that small percentage of growth.
But I think it was I'm not sure those numbers are accurate because if you even take a look at the debt service of $5 million, you can't service $5 million.
It wasn't even applicable from day one.
Not for 6 houses a year unless every one of us stand up and want to pay $2,000 a
Well,
year.
of course, we don't want to do that.
Because I think it comes out, if you just broke it out across the board and said we've got 500 homes, it's $150 or something thousand per door of debt service we have to go service. So if we don't have building permits
So
to
if we,
take care of that,
no, I understand that. So if we had another year that was good like this current year,
I would think you
the
could,
water district as a whole would be in pretty good shape in 2022.
I would say the target number is 6 figures.
Okay.
And I don't marry me that, but because that's.
No, I understand.
But yeah.
That's
the
why
target
I'm
number is
asking,
6
I'm
figures.
trying to get my head wrapped around this whole thing, where that's gonna be, and what we look like in the future. So in the coming year, if we go back to 8 or 9 building permits, we're still in trouble.
Well, I think Marty did go ahead.
I was gonna just say, there's many factors that come into play on viability. Rick Mosier and Carol, they decided to run it lean at the time. That's how Rick did it. He just had a real lean. And they weren't thinking ahead for what happens when a well goes out? What happens when this goes wrong? What's our future plan? They didn't do any of that. They just looked at paying the bills and squeaking by. That's kind of where they started. And you can run it that way, but then you're not planning for.
Oh, no, because if you get in a pinch,
Well, when you and Mike talk about $5,000 parks reserves, those monies aren't allocated when you're running that lean. So
I understand, so it's not there.
Well, I'm just saying that's how you can run the books. The other way to run the books is if you go to one of these classes where they teach you how to run a water district, they tell you that your standby fees should pay all your bills. So, and then impact fees.
And then
are
everything
for
beyond that are
growth.
the improvements.
And we haven't been running it that way. So there's that gamut of real lean and having the impact fees cover all of your bills. We're nowhere near in between any of that. Or someplace in between where we're at.
And that's what I mean by our goal, is to restructure that and be able to live within those standby fees. To be able to build up, in a sense, a water department, because we have to
Plan ahead.
we have to dissolve our district, yeah, but that seems to be where this council seems to be wanting to go. So if in fact that comes to be, then we'll take those, we'll operate, that'll become our operating budget, our standby fee amounts. Then we'll take our impact fees and put those into place, and then our reserve going there as well. So when we have these, so we can have some 5,000, but you're talking about creating a $100,000 reserve, and we just had an argument because we don't even have an office or a place they'll put any parts in. So, you know, it's talking about putting the cart before the horse.
Don't we have a warehouse over there?
Well, we have a 20-foot container or something.
But not big enough to support a water department.
Maybe it's 40, but I haven't seen it.
And the time, if you have one subdivision break, guys, if any one of these subdivisions that are saying that they're gonna go break, if they break and you go to 100 lots, they'll become a 2 or 3 man team overnight, just that fast. That's how much growth you're talking about, how much demand is on his job. I'm saying that guy's already overworked. And if we don't start taking this water department and start treating it as a water department and start operating off of this budget and start operating off this allocation and use those money to build our water department, this problem will be here 3 years from now. It's not gonna go away. We've got to, I hate to say this, I hate to say this, but we're in the business of providing utilities and service to our public.
It's our job.
That's what we do. And we have to have those dollars to support that maintenance program where every one of us end up with a $2,000, $3,000 a year tax to cover the operations of this town. So those building permits are absolutely necessary for us to continue to grow. It's just hard right now to say without 2 consecutive years of growth, and the unstable market right now really scares me. I mean, we're in the building business, and Mike's in the building business. We're already seeing a downtick. The craziness has disappeared. The numbers are coming back and leveling out, but we still can't get product. If you take Reslin out of Louisiana and that shop gets damaged as it did through the hurricane, and Reslin all of a sudden is now pushed back 60, 90, 100 days. I'm working with Rocky Mountain Power right now to get a new substation placed up here, because how many times does our power go off? Every time we get heat or anything happening. So we're working on getting a new substation put in up here. But water right now, in my project alone, I just got a notification 2 days ago that our water line has now been pushed back 90 days, no guarantee of price. And in fact, if you get a delivery of pipe on Tuesday, you're subject to have a price change on your delivery of pipe on Thursday, because they won't guarantee it. That's how volatile it is. So that scares me to sit here and say, this is what we can emphatically do. And in a public meeting where you're saying what percentages, what dollars are we targeting? You know, we want to target 20-25% in reserve. Eliminating this one debt that we have frees up about $80,000 a year. That alone is not a profit center, but a reserve.
And so that's good in 2022.
Yeah. But right now, if you took what's on the board and you talk to those contractors, and if they in fact break ground before the end of the year, as they say they're going to do, then you're talking about 100 homes in this town over the next 18 months being built. And the market's there for them to absorb it. So we're in the business of providing, and that requires that forward-thinking planning that Marty's talking about that we haven't done in the past. And there's nothing wrong with running on shoestring budget if that's what you want to do. But we have to change our way of thinking to accommodate our growth, whether we like it or not.
I want to bring up one thing too.
Dale
Dale was talking about, maybe we need to go deeper on one of these wells.
Mhm.
And Rod Mills brought this up and clear back in 2014. So from 2014 to today, they've been talking about that and they haven't done it.
No action.
And that's where it's important that, okay, which one is,
Well, that's how like there was any
deeper?
money, they would leave.
But that's my
I
point is
disagree with that.
there's not that there's no money, it's just that there's no planning to do that stuff because they've just been living on a shoestring. And that, like that, rate increase that we did a year ago, should have been done 2 or 3 years ago, because that's how broke they were. Every year they were like, oh, let's hope that we're gonna get this money, and then of course it didn't come in. And next year they'd hope again, and the same developers are gonna do this, and the same developers are gonna do this, the same developers, every year they bring their same list forward every single year, that this is money we can count on for our budget, and it never appeared. And that's why, that increase should have happened sooner, which would have put us in a better financial position.
Yeah.
And I understand why they didn't do it. I'm not trying to knock Daryl. He was trying to be kind to those residents that can't afford it. I get it. But at the same time, we're a municipality, we're supposed to think ahead. And if we were thinking ahead and we dug that well back in 2015 or 2016, would we be where we're at today with the bad water that we have pumped down the ground? Knowing that Frank doesn't have that problem, and it's not that far away from the well that we use. And we could have just gone down another, I think his is, I heard it say it's 600 feet, I might be wrong there. And so if we dug it that well 200 feet deeper, and all of a sudden we have the same quality and quantity of water he has, would we even need the pipeline?
And Marty
Well,
points out,
it would still be nice to put all that fresh water along out of the house.
well, we're gonna, that's
Good
what they,
use.
Marty points out, there's another element of what Marty's talking about too, and it's talking about, it's always, it's easy to say Monday morning quarterback, guys. It's always easy to look back and say, all right, shoulda, coulda, woulda done this. But there's an element to the cost of the water well too, that we should have addressed. We would have been better off addressing 3 years ago. The cost of that water well today is a 275% increase what it was in 2010. What's it gonna be at the end of this current administration?
Right.
I don't know.
Same with the fire truck, you know, we keep kicking that can down the road, they just get more expensive every year.
So that's,
Had they bought that one when we had it approved before, we've been a whole lot better off today.
so I've been telling you guys that one of the primary things we've been working on internally is replacing and introducing policies and procedures and budgetary procedures, the things are some of the things we've been working on in-house here and in staff here to try and get a projection to go forward. This goes back to the conversation about the fire department that we had earlier tonight. We've been trying since April, rather than February, to work with the current fire administration to get those budgets identified without any cooperation. You know, you can say, I don't like him, he doesn't like me, and that's beside the point. We have fiduciary responsibility to manage and offer those services to the public, and without that cooperation, we're not getting it. So we need the same thing with the water district. We need to do the same thing with the water. We've got to build those budgets for the future before we're working on it. Any other questions about the register? And I'm going to propose that we table this to the next meeting as well. I'm not taking the action on this. I'll make a motion to table that. For the second. Second. Vote again, Marty.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. So we'll table that line item. Item number 3. I think oh shoot, they're gone. No, item number 3. Discussion and possible action on resolution to disallow new well development within the service district area. This is as a result of Mr. Wilson, David Wilson, I forget about American County. Okay, Mr. Wilson is drilling a well up in, off of Foothill Drive right now. He was granted a permit and a will serve letter, I want to say approximately a year ago. It was in 2020 that he was granted that permit to drill that well. I had always been
By the
told
state.
by the state, not by us. We don't issue well permits like that. I had always been told that in our town, you could not drill a well inside a service area where there was current water available to you.
I was under the same impression.
However, in our investigation with the state, what we determined was is that the recommendation was made some years ago to the district to incorporate that resolution into the bylaws of the district, and it was not done. It was never done. So he is in fact legal. He can drill a well. In fact, every one of these residents, every one of us can go drill a well right now in our backyard if we want to.
I'm gonna go start right now.
And I'm a huge,
Get a shovel out.
I'm a huge property rights guy, but we're also to understand that we're in the business of offering water, and we have a responsibility to deliver water to every one of our residents. And if 99 of them decided to drill a well and one did not, we would still have to have a water system in for the 99 people. It's a conflict for us to be able to operate as a water district and allow that within.
I think there's health issues in there too, as well, but too. When you start drilling in the same water table,
Yeah,
contamination and everything else, yeah.
But I want to bring you up to speed what we learned. He's made application for a zone change up there, which we have not advanced because there's still complications with it. But in his presentation, he presented to the town council, or sorry, the planning commission, that he was wanting to build a 10-acre garden up there. His well permit, however, is only for a quarter of an acre of surface. That's all he's been granted to irrigate. So even if he drills a well, he still cannot go irrigate 10-acre grounds, only a quarter. I want to make sure the public understands that I've been trying to get that message out to as many people that can, especially the ones who call me every other day to complain. One of the other complaints about it was that he was drilling past the allotment time of construction in our town, and our town is actually 10 p.m. It's not 6 p.m. as it was presented.
That's right, right.
The complaints that were filed stated that the ordinance says that we can't go past 6 p.m. That's not what our ordinance says. It does say 10 p.m. There are other factoring issues that we need that you guys can get an email from me on that involve that. But he is legal. He can drill as well. We have not advanced we have not, JUC has, let me correct it, JUC has not advanced his application to the planning commission. We only put them on the planning commission for discussion so that he could come in and present what it is that he wants to do, because in his many visits to the city and to the staff, he's presented several different ideas of what he wanted to do up there. What he presented on a public level, documented public level, is that he wants to build a 10-acre garden by which he can sell organic product to the restaurants around town. That, in my mind, would make him a commercial product. The problem is our agricultural zones allude to the idea, in my interpretation anyway, and they call as well, is that an ag product can be sold. So what you're doing is allowing, if you change it to an agricultural zone, which is what planning commission suggested to him against our recommendation, against JC's recommendation, because it's currently a residential plot. It is plotted for 20 lots. It is also within the confines of Smithsonian, what do we call it? Gooseberry.
Gooseberry ranches, but it's also the general map says residential too.
It does say residential, but agricultural is residential. You can build a home on it. So it was bad advice.
But we have an agriculture general map designation. It's not that.
I agree, but the general map is also a guideline and is not an absolute. So,
And the other issue, I don't mean to cut you off,
so you're fine.
the guy right next to him asked for agriculture.
And we said no. And so when the planning commission turned around and said, let's recommend to you that you go to agriculture, I was a little bit floored that we would make that recommendation. I'm not in favor, Mike, I'm just telling you, I'm not in favor of I love the idea of a garden. I love the idea of aesthetic value, but I'm not in love with the idea of having a commercial product inside a residential community that can be sold to the local restaurants. And that's the direction he's going with it. We received complaints in the last week from the residents who live up there who are demanding that we go stop them from drilling that water well. We don't have a legal authority to do that. We don't issue well permits. They're demanding that I got a flyer. I don't know whoever got it. I brought it. I forgot it, but I don't know where I put it. Received a flyer yesterday in the mail from, I believe, from Mrs. Osowski, who circulated the flyer that stated there is a public hearing on October the 6th regarding this item. There is no such thing. It has not been passed on to the planning commission with any kind of recommendation. Everybody's entitled to their voice. I got no problem with that. But let's make the voice accurate. This states on here that they're encouraging everybody to come to the October 6th public hearing meeting for his zone change. That does not exist. So I want to make sure the staff the council is very, very clear that simply is not the case, to make you fully aware of what is he's actually doing up there. That is his goal. He has presented to the planning commission to build a 10-acre organic farm with commercial bathrooms, commercial watering system. He even indicated he wanted to put 5 miles of irrigation pipe on that 10 acres of ground. Being a golf course developer, there's no way I could put 5 miles of pipe in there. So we haven't gotten a clear view of what he really wants to do in here. And as such, we are not making recommendations that be advanced to the planning commission until he comes in with some more information on what he's doing there. Okay? That's the report on that. So what we were proposing is that on the next board meeting, we'd like to come back with a resolution to disallow wells from being drilled inside service areas only. That means where there is water available to the homeowner. If you live out in Coyote Road, I think it's called, where there is no water lines out there, that's a different deal. But where it's a serviceable area, so you guys could consider that, and John is preparing that resolution for our next meeting before we first vote. Okay. Item number 4, discussion of possible action on purchase agreement of water rights for Jefferson Canyon development. Again, a no action item, but I want to bring you up to speed.
That needs some.
I just want to bring you up to speed on what that is. So Jefferson Canyon has moved into an agreement by 100 acre-feet of water from a private individual who banks that water in our current district. The requirement in our development agreement is they've got to buy that water and they turn that over to the district for their hookups. What they're asking is that the town allow them to purchase that water from that third party and have it delivered directly to us and vacate them. They just bring it right to us. Spoke with Nate at the state. That's not the big hurdle. The big hurdle is what comes with it. The due diligence of the water share becomes our liability. They're also asking that we, as part of that water that we make sure that it's our responsibility to deliver that water to the development, not interior development, but it would mean if they were pulling out this system, we'd be responsible for running the water line across the highway to their front property boundary, which we're not in favor of absorbing. And then the third one was the third item they wanted that our third element that they created, and that was just whether or not the shares in the due diligence, the shares of water they purchased, and are they actual liquid water? And I'm advocating we don't take on any of that liability.
Well, I don't think we all do. I agree with you.
So
I agree with you. They're trying to catch us.
They are.
Catch 22 on that.
if it
Sounds like to me.
if we cannot, working with Nathan and Dayton Hall, they believe there's an avenue by which we can take delivery of the water without any liability. But it's everything they correctly put in the contract. So we have, I didn't even bring the development agreement and put it on the agenda because it's not acceptable. I wasn't making a decision for everybody. I'm just saying we're still vetting through that and it's not acceptable. So we rejected and sent it back to them and took those line items down to see if we can find an avenue to accept the delivery of the water. If we can't, then they'll have to acquire and transfer it back. So that's where we're at now.
Did we have seemed like the last time we spoke about this, they were backing off on commercial in phase 1. Where are we at on that? Are they doing residential only, or are they doing commercial and residential?
No, they submitted a plan, which we accepted, but we didn't agree to move it forward. That only showed residential because it was, and I'm working off of memory, it was my understanding, because some of this was approved before I came in, but my understanding, I'm going to state this, it was my opinion, the reason I supported the PID was because they were doing the commercial and the million-gallon tank up front.
Right.
That was the reason I supported it.
And
That's
so we were
changed.
making them responsible for all that, right? Correct. And in their first phase, in their preliminary site plan submittal, they excluded that. So while I have to take it, I did not agree to move it forward, advance it forward until we work through that. Okay, so we're meeting with them tomorrow or Monday and meeting with UDOT to address their entryway and those things. I met with their engineer today. He agrees. That's the conditions we put in the tank first to build the road. And commercial is phase one, but if I bring in a map that says phase one is residential commercial, I'm required to build phase one before I can go to phase two. That doesn't mean I have to build this portion of phase one or this portion of phase one. It means that phase one is approved for 30 lots in commercial, and before I'm able to go to phase two, I have to complete phase one. So it would be a little bit difficult to say you must build the commercial before you build the first house. That's gonna be challenging for us.
That's why we approved the PID was.
Yep.
Because we're gonna build commercial, which is.
Yep.
And then get their infrastructure.
And they're included in phase one, but to physically say you have to build that commercial building before you build a residential house, Dayton is very adamant that we understand that we probably can't reach quite that far. Okay, so we're still working through that.
All right.
Okay.
So the next 10 years.
Okay, policies and procedures, that's kind of what we're talking about, so we'll have a package of policies and procedures that are good, our first phase of this in our next meeting. Any need for a closed session?
Nope. No.
I make a motion, we adjourn?
Second.
Aye. You just adjourn.